Jesse Peretz, director of City on Fire, which is based on Garth Risk Hallberg's novel. How familiar were you with the book before you joined the show?
I was not, I mean, I think I had heard something about the book, but I had not. I read the pilot script and the whole sort of show Bible before I actually read the book. And the book is mammoth. I mean, it's a really it is a really fun read, but it is a real undertaking at, like, I think just shy of 900 pages.
Mhm.
But it was, so it's funny because people keep asking me about the choices to update the book from the 70s into the early aughts, and I'm always like, well, that was, to me, I sort of learned about it that the book originally took place in 1977, only sort of after signing on to the project. But it was really fun to sort of recreate the early aughts, and which is a period that I definitely was enjoying, the city that I still live in right now, New York City.
Yeah, same. I actually love the update to 2003, which is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Insane to think about, but well, when you think about it, like this New York City itself doesn't look that much different between now
Yeah.
and then, but the vibe is so different.
Yeah.
And obviously not the same technology as there is now. So how did you guys, you and Josh Schwartz and Stephanie Savage, the showrunners, go about recreating that time period?
That time period. Well, I mean, I do think that, it being just a slight period was very helpful in terms of, like, we definitely had a sort of we were sort of carrying around when we were on location, like, a good sort of 6 to 15 cars from the late 90s, that we would put in the sort of more prominently in the frame when we were sort of out on the streets or whatever. But for the most part, we just sort of let traffic go and crossed our fingers. And then, there were people sort of keeping an eye out to make sure there wasn't, like, a real obvious
No iPhones and stuff.
yeah, oh yeah, no iPhones for sure, but no, like, Teslas prominently hovering in the frame or whatever. I mean, honestly, the thing that was the most difficult, and I think is actually the most difficult, even if it's not period for everyone, um, is that the city is, like, filled with all of those street restaurants that came out during COVID, which the New Yorker in me doesn't want to go away, but the filmmaker in me oftentimes wishes they would disappear. There are definitely locations where, like, oh, this is totally perfect, except for you can't pan because you hit that outdoor restaurant thing. So
Well, you guys, there's a whole story component with the downtown music scene. The nightlife, which is also so different too, and a lot of the story takes place at Don Hill.
yeah.
So what was it like recreating that and making it look good?
Well, I mean, for me, that was one of the particular joys when we got the go ahead to use Don Hills and opened the door and found that it was basically Don Hill had died like 12 years ago, and they basically just put a lock on the door. Like, it was exactly what it always was.
Oh,
That for me was, I mean, I'm gonna sound like it's an embarrassing thing to say, but I probably spent, like, at least 150 nights in that club in the 90s. Not so much by 2002. I think I maybe wasn't going quite as frequently, but, like, it was a regular part of my 20s nightlife for sure. And so it was very exciting to see it in the script, and then even more exciting to actually be able to shoot in the actual place. And there I found myself, like a typical middle-aged person, sort of waxing on to my young cast about all the great nights that I spent there, and watching them smile, like a dotty old man who but anyway, so but I I definitely I was in a rock band in the 80s. I mean, I left in 1991, but I was definitely heavily in the rock world. And so like for me, one of the funnest things was not only getting to shoot in there, but sort of shoot a rock, shoot a sort of small club rock show, which is like really where I spent sort of a huge amount of my sort of younger adult years and teenage years, and I have very strong feelings about sort of how to do that effectively, and sort of things that never, and oftentimes feeling things in clubs don't really feel like how they actually feel to be in clubs. So that was that was sort of a particularly fun part of
Yeah,
shooting.
you could definitely feel that, like all the ex post facto concert
Yeah,
scenes,
exactly.
and then like all the flashing lights. It's like it's really like you're back there, because I think even now the those type of concerts and those types of clubs are different. So, but
Yeah. Yeah.
Jemima Kirke, we have a girls reunion here because you worked on Girls, but she's also said that she spent quite a bit of
Yeah.
time in Don Hills back in her day too. I'm
I know.
also reuniting with her
She
on
was
this.
in high school. She was in
Yeah.
high school in those years where I was at least a little, really proper adult. Yeah, I know. I think it was a real bummer for her to like be to realize like, oh, we're shooting this show that keeps going into this club that was such a like centerpiece of her social life when she was younger. And now she unfortunately is playing like the mother role who doesn't get to go. Anyway, I feel like she's been very funny talking about about sort of not being written into those scenes for obvious reasons.
Yeah, definitely. I also feel like her character Regan, it was kind of a wink to Jessa, her
Yeah.
girl's character, because um she has a line in there after she finds out her husband has an affair, like I was that girl, that like
Yeah.
girl. So was that something you guys were trying to put that in there, like sort of like an Easter egg?
Well, I don't think that, I don't think we were consciously trying to do a callback to Girls, but I do think, I think Jemima was, we were, to be honest, that was like kind of the one of the harder roles to cast. And we were sort of, it was written, I think it was sort of the original conception of Josh and Stephanie's was someone that was a little more kind of uptown type A, like the more sort of put together Regan, who just is cracking at this point in her life. And we weren't really loving the people that were coming in that were sort of playing the character as written. And Stephanie credits me with coming up with the idea of Jemima. I believe that it was Stephanie's idea. Stephanie really does love she does love kind of a bit of like a rascal bad girl. And so anyways, in my recollection, my version of the story is Stephanie saying Jemima and me immediately thinking, oh my God, that's so exciting. And I knew that Jemima would bring a kind of edgier and an edgier version of that character. And what I think we learned in our first days of working with her is that she really had an interpretation of that character where you could see that the younger version of Regan was much more like her brother and wasn't so like pulled together. And I actually think that it ended up like adding more sort of depth and complexity to that character, to think that like once upon a time she and her brother were more kind of rebellious and on the same page and not feeling comfortable with this sort of wealthy waspy uptown family that they were born into, and that she did make this choice to sort
Yeah,
of
their paths diverged. They make it.
yeah, and that she had made a choice to being like, I'm gonna be daddy's girl and be the young woman that he wants me to be, but that there's a part of her that was always sort of connected to a different path that her brother took, that she could have taken, something like that. And anyways, to me, that was like kind of part of the magic of ending up with her in that role. And I think Josh, Stephanie, and myself, I think we all really felt like it was actually a sort of fortuitous upgrade in the sort of depth of what that character became.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Jesse, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for
Nice
your
talking
time.
to you.
We'll see you back in a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Bye.